good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. In case you're wondering what the day is, it's Tuesday, the 8th of July 2025. We're already counting down to whatever it is you're counting down. So I'm Jeffrey, who's on as always with my people. Guys, what's going on?
Yeah, it's a colorful day, and we hope to bring you some color as well on a beautiful Tuesday morning. Welcome to your perfect morning starter. I am Bukola Kuka.
So your healthy dose of news, conversations, the right one, starts right now on Channels Television. I'm Kayode Okikulu, and yeah, what a week it's turning out to be, really. And we're just Tuesday, that's still Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, politically speaking, and when it comes to the economy, the economics of things, that is. But then some top stories that we're tracking for Nigerians this morning. And well, this one is from Vice President Kashim Shettima, who says that Nigeria remains committed to the ban on nuclear weapon testing. When you hear nuclear weapon, it rings a bell, particularly at this time when there's a lot of wars here and there, some cold, some full-blown, some proxy. Well, the Vice President was speaking at the meeting, the presidential villa, with a delegation from the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, which was led by its Executive Secretary, Dr. Robert Floyd. Mr. Shettima says that Africa's priority at the moment is to address its existential challenges of poverty and the effects of climate change, and not the pursuit of nuclear weapons capability. I'll take a listen to the Vice President.
We are fighting poverty. We are fighting a war against the incestuous relationship between economy and ecology in sub-Saharan Africa. We have no business dabbling into anything that has to do with nuclear warfare. So I want to assure you, I reiterate our commitment to the comprehensive nuclear test ban. And I want to appreciate your organization for the extra vigilance you have kept, having 337 stations spread across the world. And the beauty of CTBTO's functions is that the monitors also have civilian purposes, especially in assisting us to detect tsunamis, volcanic seismic activities. So your functions are contributing to the global stability of our ecology.
So that's the Vice President speaking there. Some will say what is good for the goose is good for the gander. You still see countries like the United States, China, Russia, France, United Kingdom, India. Well, North Korea, of course, comes up as well, still having some sort of nuclear weapon. So how about we all just agree and say, let us get rid of it totally? Other than, well, majority of the countries not allowed to have it, but some countries still have it. Yes, they'll say they've destroyed it since the war, but they still have thousands currently, the warhead. So I think it's a good conversation to have. Yes, clamp down on other countries, do not have it, but the ones that have it as well, let us get rid of it totally. I don't know, is it that hard?
I totally agree with him to the extent that that's not our priority. In the hierarchy of need, according to Maslow, we're still at the very basics of trying to survive. That's where we are.
Don't forget, security is part of survival.
I'm saying at this point, in terms of the basics of what he's trying to reference, that right now we haven't gotten anything right in Africa when it comes to emerging economies in that terms, whether it's electricity, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's pipe-borne water. I'm not mentioning anything sophisticated. I mean things that are as basic as basic. So that conversation around nuclear weapon may be far-fetched, but there has to come a day when we'll have that conversation. If there's a day you're expecting all of these guys who have nuclear weapons to decommission or whatever, it may never happen because of the balance of terror in that sense. So that's why we're talking about Iran is being attacked, because they don't have nuclear weapons. They can't try that with China. They can't try that with
even North
Korea, because those ones are very willing. In fact, they are waiting for who will try them. So in that sense. And the truth is that there are two things that makes you world power in terms of, besides all the development you can whether it's production, whatever it is you assess as development, what gives you a seat on the table most of the time is wealth and your military.
Yeah.
And we're not on that table, not even any
so
of us.
So if we don't have the wealth, maybe we should invest in the
military. But right now, you have to eat before you go into a fight. So we're still trying to eat in that sense. So to that extent, yes. But at certain points, we need to begin to develop ours. We may start with the decoy of developing it for energy and all of that, and so that nobody insults us. Nobody. Look at what Trump is doing. The BRICS nation is meeting in Rio, and Trump is saying, well, those of you that are supporting anti-American policy, get ready for this. Well, we want to get to a point where anybody who wants to talk to Africa someday will say, avoid these people. Yeah. They're as crazy as we are. We have to get to that point. But for right now, I totally agree with Vice President. Let's put food on our table. Take care of our children, take care of our environment, deal with our apocalypses, allow me to use that word, and then we can now talk of nuclear weapons.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with the Vice President as well. I just wish that there would be more honesty when we begin to have that conversations about poverty and hunger and disease and starvation, and then the figures are no longer adjusted as we see, to suit the profile of the administration as performing. Yes, indeed, we have bigger fish to fry, and indeed, nuclear weapons may not be necessarily on the front burner at this particular point in time, but security is also a part of survival, as Kayode has said. When you consider the areas where the advanced nations are, moving ahead, and they are at the forefront of discussions as far as development is concerned, and Nigeria is not anywhere close to these tables. When you consider the big countries of the world, the G7, artificial intelligence, whereas Nigeria, we've had a healthy dose of conversations around that area. Nigeria has necessarily no seat on the table, cybersecurity, and now we're talking nuclear weapons. But I just, wanted to point it out that it's just as important for us to be as honest that the basic things, that are important to us that we're dealing with, we have not solved those problems yet. And I appreciate that honesty. I just wish that it would come through where it's important, where politics becomes the big talking point, and the figures are not adjusted to suit the administration. But more importantly, also we must also highlight the commissioning of Enugu Air. Perhaps it's tried to say congratulations to the administration of Governor Peter Mba, but there are other concerns that we must also point out as well. I recall, when we had the MD of FAN on the program, and she pointed out that 22, airports are not viable, and in fact, the 3 airports in the country, are the most viable, and the funding from there is, going around to manage all the other airports. So, where's the, conversation? Where's the important highlight of the viability of these airports, where the professionals, at the seat with governors advising them on the necessity or otherwise of these airports. I believe that those should also be highlighted as well, guys.
Well, besides all of that, let's tell you about what's playing out in the nation's capital, Abuja, where Senator Eriti Kingibe has been speaking about the issue of the prioritization of governance by the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike. Nyesom Wike is very big, as always, on infrastructure, but she's saying there are other things that are not being done. And in fact, I think in her words, we're going to hear her say some of the things she said, more like maybe the people even resent him for some things he's doing, although he's doing some, facelift, landscaping, and all the beautiful things that everybody can see. But there are more fundamental things that will cause significant advancement in terms of human capital development that is not being done. But let's take a listen to her, and we'll come back.
Say, and all those places where you have those high rises, it's all pitch dark. Most of Abuja is pitch dark. Do you understand? So I go there, put solar lights in between the places, light up the place so that young people will at least have, you can't keep them at home, so they at least be safer. They would come give me awards, commend me for looking out for them. It's not that he wouldn't have done it too, except he doesn't know what they need. I know Karu Market is pitch dark. I put lights there. Communities will write to me. There's so much insecurity around this place. A few lights will make a difference. I put it. Solar lights are cheap, but how many can I put? For where I can put one, the minister can put 1,000. Do you see the difference? So,
if the people know this much about you, and considering the politics that's playing out, and the minister going about saying that you definitely will not be returning in 2020.
You know, I was not interested in running. You want to bet? I know for a certain that were I to decide to run, it's a shoe in. Now, let me tell you something. Local government elections is coming early next year. That is when the people of the FCT show ministers, we like you or we do not like you. The local government election is going to tell whether Wike controls FCT, because nobody does. And it's only people who have lived here for a long time know that the people of the FCT have their independent mind. And it's people who live here. You walk on the streets and you will know that the one thing that unites us all in the FCT is our resentment of the minister. It's not just about development. It's about treating us with levity, treating us with disregard and contempt.
All right, so clear words there, no mincing them. Ireti Kingibe, the senator representing the FCT. You can watch more of that 5 p.m. and 11 p.m. today on our program Political Paradigm, guys. So
2 p.m. I believe.
It was 5 p.m. now.
5 p.m.
It's now 5 p.m.
All right.
Shots fired, guys. This is a clear challenge.
Well, February next year, that is when
the first litmus test,
the area council elections will hold, well, it will be interesting to see. We know that the FCT minister has a lot of battles. Really, he's fighting. I wonder what his mindset is like, because I've lost count of the different battles that he has. Not cold battles, or like very present and active battles that he's fighting. He's fighting in the PDP, he's fighting the coalition who are in the PDP or outside of the PDP, then in River State as well. Don't forget there's that as well that is still brewing in some sense. Some will say, even though there's been some sort of peace deal. And of course, in the FCT, so it looks like Senator Kingibe versus the FCT minister, but she's saying no, it is the people of the FCT versus the FCT minister. But some will look and say, well, he's done a lot of projects. Again, she's saying there are areas that haven't been fixed and need to be fixed, which is why she says that she believes the people of the FCT resent him. But you know what? This is going to be a big one, really, because the FCT minister is really not an FCT person. Right, he came from River State to be the FCT minister. Senator Kingibe is an FCT person in that sense. So on different fronts, this is going to be an interesting one, but I do not want to see any violence. Okay, let's keep it at talk and not war.
There's no love lost between the FCT minister and the senator representing the FCT, Senator Ireti Kingibe. We know that as far as sour relations are concerned, both of them go way back to the commencement, of her tenure at the Senate. But resentment may just be a rather strong word to use, and it's only evidence of the rusty relations between both politicians in the FCT. Maybe more like resentment between both of them. Well, yes, considering the fact that the FCT minister, does not see eye to eye with her. Well, many may not like the approach of the FCT minister, a hard-working man, commissioning projects, and he has a history of that from when he was governor of River State. He recently did a Thanksgiving service, to appreciate God for the success so far of the projects commissioned in the FCT. But perhaps many may not also like his approach, to things when you consider issues of the ground rent, demolition in the FCT. But all these, are more of politics. Politics being played between two politicians. There are real issues that we should talk about. And perhaps, she's also speaking to those issues that the FCT minister must pay attention to in the federal capital. Let's not forget also primary school students. We haven't had, a word from the FCT minister or from the relevant, departments in the FCT as far as that strike is concerned, and whether or not indeed there has been an implementation of the minimum wage for teachers in primary schools in the FCT. But as far as that is concerned, it's politics.
For me, it's a shame that the FCT primary school teachers are still on strike. I think it's a shame on everybody who is supposed to make that not to happen. Whether it's the FCT, whether it's the area council people, whoever is responsible for, because there's always an interchange between the local government and the state, but this time it's not the state. When you have your primary school teachers, by extension, primary school children, not in school for how many months now? It should be up to 4 months if my records are correct, from March, but I don't have the accurate data. It's a shame that with the big monies being spent on the FCT and the things we see being done to the environment and in terms of road and infrastructure, the most important thing, which is the development of the children, the successor generation, in terms of education, is not being tackled headlong. In fact, there should be an emergency in that area. We don't see it. That's a total shame, and it's a failure on both the FCT minister, the representative, of the people, whether in the Senate and everybody who is in council. That's a shame. It's a shame on all of you to allow that happen, and it's not fair. Let's make sure these children go back to school. That's the least we can do for them. That's what we owe them, and I believe that this is going to change. So it's a shame to see that happen. But let's go to what we are doing today on the program. That is the performance on President Bola Tinubu as far as the economy is concerned. Right now, there's a lot of hot air in terms of politics, but we're going to take a break at some point with the politics and talk about the real issues, one of which is the state of the economy. So we're going to be assessing it with from the presidency and from an economist. Let's look at all of the sides and see what the Tinubu administration is doing right and maybe doing poorly. And we will explore that conversation yet again today.
And that's not all. The 48-hour resignation ultimatum given by the Labour Party to Mr. Peter Obi has elapsed. So what's next? The party's National Publicity Secretary will be joining us to talk politics as well as the party's internal issues.
And we'll be dissecting Nigeria's outing at the BRICS summit. Of course, not forgetting what President Donald Trump is saying, how this may change geopolitics, global politics for the world. So what is in it for Nigeria? The benefits, perhaps the cons as well. We'll be speaking with someone who is close to those meetings on the show today.
Absolutely. And let's get to what the question of the day is on the program. Okay, we'll get to that in just a moment. But let's not forget, Kaude, we'll throw that question at some point on the program. But now we'll get to what you're saying in front of the dailies, or not what you're saying, rather, what the dailies are actually saying as far as the papers are concerned. Just join us again in just a moment. We'll be right back. All right, so let's get to the ladies. Mr. Akinkobi joins us today on the program. He's an analyst and a public affairs analyst. Let me complete the name. Welcome to the program, as always. Let's take a look at some of, I want to be sure I'm looking at the right dailies because there are so many dailies in front of me. Yes, I think let's start with this Nigeria. No, I think that's not the right one. Let's go back to the one I'm very sure of. New Telegraph newspaper. Nigeria risk over Trump's proposed extra 10% tariff against BRICS nation. Nigeria at risk over Trump's proposed extra 10% tariff against BRICS nation. And the writers, Tinubu calls for re-evaluation of global governance, finance, orders. China canvasses global governance reforms, South-South cooperation, and then the report, Nigeria becoming target of Russia's influence campaign in Africa. So there's a lot of attention on us. What do you make of this story?
The sun is setting on the American empire. That's clear. It's been clear for some years. And of course, Trump is doing his best to propagate this America first, and America is the greatest, and America is the best thing since sliced bread. Well, when you look at the emergence of countries like Brazil, Russia, India, China, you can't blame Nigeria for trying to align with the BRICS because that's where the future is. So, of course, Trump is trying to protect his own territory, his own domain in terms of continuing to be the economic giant and military giant of the world. So he's using blackmail. I mean, to say there's an additional 10% tariff on anybody who aligns with BRICS, it goes to show a sense of insecurity and fear on his part. And it has some implications for Nigeria because we are now trying to become an export-dependent economy. We're trying to move away from oil and trying to get into a diversified export portfolio. So if all of a sudden our goods become too expensive to export, especially when the Naira is weak, it becomes a big problem in terms of the fact that it will affect this drive to move away from oil dependency and begin to expand and diversify our portfolio of goods that we can expand. But I think he's pretty much just, I think his bark is worse than his bite. I think eventually he will see, as he has backtracked in the past in terms of his threat of tariffs. I think when he weighs it, and especially when countries stand up to him, some of these countries he's threatening, he's shown that he can be cowardly, and when countries stand up to him, he has a tendency to back down. So I don't think the fact that he's threatening it means that he's actually going to do it, and I don't think we should back down and back away from aligning with the BRICS countries simply because Trump is threatening us. I think Nigeria is a formidable enough power and an economy that it can't afford to be ignored, and we can't afford to be alienated, not even by America. So I don't want to give too much credence to Trump's threat.
Okay. Well, let's come home now to talk some other political issues, and the Vanguard, gives us the spreadsheet for that this morning. Take a look at the front page. 2027 presidency plotting to destabilize us, ADC alleges. And there are a few insights. Claims top government officials summoned ex-party chairman to secret meeting. Aggrieved ADC members drag Mark Aregbesola, others to court. Power blocks may crash ADC if Nwosu warns. Ex-SGF Babachir Lawal dumps APC. Ex-Kasina PDP chair joins ADC. PDP BOT member Waziri joins ADC. Decries party's loss of credibility. Well, the PDP has been emptied practically, perhaps by 90%. But this particular accusation, Mr. Akintobi, never seems to go away. If it's the Labour Party, we're hearing that, it's either the hand of, Jacob and the voice of Esau and all of that. If it's the PDP, it's the same thing that we're hearing, that the presidency, is subtly using a strategy to destabilize the party. And now it's coming through to the ADC again. What are your thoughts?
I would have loved the presidency to embrace this new coalition and say, oh, an opposition is beautiful for Nigeria's democracy. I would have wanted them to embrace this idea of the fact that all of those in the opposition have come together to give the administration a run for its money, to put it on its feet for better transparency, better accountability, better governance. I think that true Democrats welcome opposition, and if a group of people have come together to form an opposition, even if their ultimate goal is to unseat you, if you have the confidence in what you're doing and you have self-assurance that you're doing the bidding of the Nigerian people who put you in office, you wouldn't go to daggers drawn with your opponents simply because they've come together in a bid to unseat you. Democracy is all about competition, and competition should not be stifled for any reason whatsoever if you call yourself a true Democrat. So everything we're hearing about the administration and the presidency calling a meeting of northern elders of the ADC to try and see if they can persuade them to either swing over to the APC or to begin to water down this notion of a credible opposition. And like you said, you see the APC's hands in destabilizing the Labour Party, you see it also in the PDP. So you suddenly begin to ask yourself that, is the party in power really confident of its popularity with the electorate in general if they have to use all these backhanded backroom methodologies to yes, absolutely, to destabilize the opposition?
But shouldn't the opposition, shouldn't they have been aware? Because history, some people have referred to Bola Tinubu, the president, as a democratic imperialist, in the sense that the last time Lagos had an opposition, maybe it looks like 2007. Lagos as a state, when you look at Lagos, where is the opposition? So perhaps people are saying it's his style. Now, is there anything wrong with him having a style versus you having a strategy to counter his style? You get my drift?
I do, but his claim is that he's a Democrat, and you look at the things
anybody
that
can claim anything.
You look at the things that he does, and they're very anti-democratic.
Imperialist?
Well, it's a contradiction in terms. Really, it is.
There's a tendency of one within another system.
It's schizophrenic, because the left side is pushing and pulling the right side, and there's conflict internally. But yeah, look, for example, the notion of him suspending a democratically elected governor in Rivers. That's highly anti-democratic. Even if you say it's on national security basis, there are other things you could have done that wouldn't have subverted the democratic will of the people of Rivers State. So there are things that the president has done and that he represents that makes us question his democratic credentials, really. And so you look at it and you say, well, what chance does the ADC really have of unseating him as a master political strategist? And perhaps some of the moves we are seeing is this his political sagacity at play to neutralize those who would come and displace him or replace him.
Interesting times, really. We'll see how these things play out. But this Nigeria leads with security. Says aftermath of president's order, NAF airstrikes hit terrorists' hideouts in Borno, Mandara Mountain, scores killed. By the way, there's a picture of the leaders of BRICS on the front page holding hands. And maybe this is what's given President Trump some headache, because seeing them holding hands and smiling is thinking, what could we do to break them? But back to the big story on security. I know there's been a lot of onslaught. Sadly, there's been a lot of casualty on the side of Nigerian soldiers and civilians as well. And this has been a sore point for President Bola Tinubu's administration, from the killings in North Central to Sokoto. I mean, just from days ago, you could see the corpses in Sokoto. So I don't know if it's something that governments, successive governments, have become used to. Well, we'll try our best, but these killings will go on. But you see in other climes out, they say, well, we're going to ensure that we cripple this. Yes, we can take threats from outside, but not threats within. It should not be a thing. So is there that sense of coming to accept fate as it is for successive governments?
Well, you become inured to, you become immune to feeling any sort of pain or grief, or when something keeps happening over and over again, all of a sudden it seems to lose that sense of importance. But kudos to the Nigerian Air Force for their efforts in the last couple of days, where they've actually scored quite a number of victories. But overall, there's a sense of desensitization to the sheer horror and victimization that's been occurring in recent times, because like you said, it's happened over and over and over again, to where it seems to have become a part of us, to where we've just come to accept it and we live with it, and it seems as if it has defeated us, and we keep making half-hearted, sporadic efforts to combat it. It seems there's no real concerted, focused effort. So you ask yourself, why is such a problem able to internally, as you said, it's not an external aggression, this is happening within the borders of Nigeria, and it's happening with ragtag collection of misfits who, under normal circumstances, shouldn't be able to stand up to an organized fighting force. I mean, look, internal security is supposed to be the purview of the police. By the time you start calling in the military to be involved in internal security, you know the matter is out of hand, because the military really is to protect our territorial integrity. So by the time the Army and the Air Force are involved in policing the internal borders of Nigeria, the situation actually is out of hand. So you ask yourself, what can this administration do differently from what all the previous ones have done? You change the Army, the service chiefs, you change them, you throw more money at it. Do you remember the Super Tucanos? Do you remember how excited we were when we bought the Super Tucanos, and we believed that this war on terrorism was coming to an end, because these planes would come and strafe the deserts and strafe all the forests, and the bandits would be gone in a minute. And here we are, 4 or 5 years after the Tucanos came. We don't even hear about them anywhere anymore.
Because there's strings attached there. There's certain rules attached to
the purchase. So why did we purchase them if we are not free to use them to defend ourselves? That was a waste of money as far as I'm concerned.
I should just say, aside that, there's another pressing issue on the front page. ASU orders nationwide strike over delayed salary. So there's a new ASU president, right? It's no more Professor Sodeke. It's now Professor Chris Piwona. And the rule now is if their salary is delayed for more than 3 days,
no work, no pay.
No work, no pay.
Yes.
So I understand that June's salary
has not been paid.
So they're saying, well, this is July the 8th.
Yes.
That's how many days now. So please, let's go on strike. So we understand that there's a strike now that has been ordered by ASU.
Yes, that's a bit precipitous though, because you look at 8 days, it could be accounting delays, it could be, because strikes are so disruptive that even if you do one, before you overcome the effects, call everybody back to work, it's just so disruptive and it's so chaotic that you would think that tempers should kind of be calm and let common sense prevail a little, give the government the opportunity. To me, 8 days is too short a time to disrupt schooling, cancel the calendar, send everybody home, and all of the attendant misery that comes with the issue of the strike. So perhaps the new ASU head is trying to make his bones and show that he also can. So perhaps that's why, otherwise I think this is
I still don't understand it. Where salary, this is 2025.
Yes.
I totally agree with you on delays. The salary should not be a conversation again in 2025. We are in we're talking about nuclear weapons just moments ago, and just put nuclear weapons and salary on the same scale. Is that even a conversation?
In 2025, governors are beating their chests for building bus stops and building roads and saying they've achieved something. How do you not expect that in 2025 salaries won't be delayed?
I know of a state university where they delay salary 1 month or two. What is that?
Lowest common denominator of any administration should be to provide the basics. How can you be assuming or be beating your chest that you built a road and you've achieved something? When they call people the project governor and the infrastructure king, I look at it and I say, that is absolutely the barest minimum. That's not something to brag about in an age of artificial intelligence and climate change and coding and all kinds of technological advancement.
I'm happy people like you are calling the system out, because it's important. When I hear things like the president directs the military or the police, it's just like my chairman, John Momo, has paid me salary, provided at least the basics that I need, and he now has to tell me, Jeff, wake up and go to work. What is he paying me for in the first place? It doesn't make common sense.
Not at all.
Bukola.
Well, there are other stories that we can also reflect on this time around.
We really have to draw the curtains because, we can go on and on, Mr. Akintobi, particularly with you. We totally enjoy it. But we have a date, another date this week with you, absolutely. But we have to thank you so much, Mr. Dayo Akintobi, Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you for providing insight on these issues. We'll have that conversation on those projects, a proper conversation. How there's all the media attention, and then you go there and you just see it is bottles.
But won't you also blame, sometimes we may also blame ourselves as citizens for making the politicians behave the way they do. If they invest in things that we can't see, we may say they didn't do anything. So the guys have to put their monies where their mouth is. It's about votes, right?
Absolutely.
Secretary, thank you so much for your
My
time.
pleasure always.
Well, just before we get into the big conversation of the day, there's something playing out in Morocco, and our Super Falcons are doing some great work. So this is almost like going to the back page of the front pages or the dailies and talk about sports. And our correspondent Cecilia Morbe is live with us from Morocco, venue of WAFCON. That's the Women AFCON. The Super Falcons won their first match 3-0, and we just want to touch base with them to celebrate them, right? We don't leave anyone behind, whether it's men's or women's football. We celebrate all our sports people. Well, Cecilia, good morning. I'm sure you're excited, looking forward to the next match on Thursday. But speak to us about the mood there and really how the Super Falcons are faring, because there's a heavyweight on their shoulder. They call it Mission X, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's a Mission X. And the way they started so well. So you'll understand that once the team starts so well, winning your first game is always important. That kind of sets the tone for the players. And after the win, speaking with most of them, and the unanimous kind of agreement, the agreement they all have is that the focus is on this Mission X. Because if you remember what happened in 2022, when they had the second worst outing since the tournament, since the inception of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. So they just had this belief that having finished fourth in the last edition and coming here back to Morocco, because it was the place where they lost the trophy to South Africa. So their intention now is they're not just on a revenge mission, but to, have that superpower again, because every team right now think the Super Falcons are beatable. After they lost to Morocco in semi-final the last time, and they went on for the third place match, they lost to Zambia. So teams are now thinking this is a team that they can beat. But for what happened to Tunisia on the opening game, after that, so everyone are now taking the Super Falcons seriously, knowing that these girls are definitely not here to play.
And from what we've seen in their last match, it seems that they're in fine form. I wonder if you've had an opportunity, for an up-close with them during training. Confirm to us what form the girls are in and what we should expect in their next match.
Yeah, I think I haven't really observed them in training because landed, after their last training session. So I was just able to reach them before the game. But the warm-up game that they had, I learned that some of the girls were actually a bit heavy. But I think maybe it's because of the opening game and the fact that, they've not really been together for a very, very long time. I think the camping days was, about 10 or 8 days camping or something, for you to have all the players together. So I think maybe that's one of the things that are playing out. But I think generally the mood is actually that they want to win at this tournament. So since they're not having no injury worries or anything in camp as of now, and the fact that there's just this joy and happiness among them, so the whole focus now is for them to see how they can approach the next game. When I asked Chiamaka Nnadozie, what's the mission? And it's of course Mission S is to win, but they are taking the game they are taking the tournament one game at a time. the same thing the coach echo, they're taking it one game at a time. They're not looking beyond what they have next right in front of them, which is Botswana on Thursday. That's the team they will play. Botswana lost to Algeria by a long goal. And we know the last edition, Botswana and Nigeria played, of course, it was Nigeria won that match. So that tells you that what they are right now it tells you how the girls are ready, how they're prepared, and how they just intend to just come here, not just to, do what they did the last time, but do what they did in 2018. Yes, we understand that most of the players that did that are not here. I think we just have a couple of them, the likes of Asisa Toshola, Osinachi Ogale, Ainde, and of course the goalkeeper. I just have a few of them that were in that tournament that started the game, that they played on their opening game. And of course, Francisca Vega didn't get a time to play, or Numoni didn't get a time to play. So it tells you that if you look at the bench and look at the players that started, so there's a lot of talent everywhere. So there is no doubt that, with this crop of talent, with the kind of motivation, with the kind of they're self-motivated really to go all the way. I think the second game against Botswana will be more relaxed, because the game against Tunisia the first half was a bit shaky, but when they got those 2 goals cushion, it get better in the second half. They created more chances, but the goals weren't coming on it until Iwizu actually scored that goal to make it 3-0, and then there was a kind of a balance for the game.
Good. It was good to see them pay tribute to Peter Rufai. I could see on Asisa Doshola's band where she wrote his name. Even Risola, when she scored, with this Diogo Jota's celebration. So I think the stakes are also high for them, particularly for Peter Rufai. So against Botswana on Thursday, as you said, and Algeria on Sunday, we're wishing them the very best. But Cecilia, your predictions: Botswana, Algeria. Give us a prediction.
Yeah, Botswana, Nigeria. I think maybe another 3-0 or something. I think they can actually do that. And I love what CAF did. You just mentioned Peter Rufai, before the kick-off, they had this a minute silence for him, or everyone had to stand up at the stadium. And the players, all of them wearing the black armband just to honor that legend. I think that was really very classy and very nice of CAF. But my grasp with them was like 20 seconds. It wasn't up to a minute for her, but it was actually okay after that. I think 3-0 should be fine. Yes, 3-0 should be fine.
Should be fine. Well, we have to thank you so much, Cecilia Morgbe, reporting live from Morocco. That's the venue of the women's AFCON, where Super Falcons are aiming for a 10th title. Cecilia, have a great day. I know there's a briefing very soon, which you have to run to, but get back to us as soon as you have more interesting stuff.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, there you have it, an update with the women's AFCON holding in Morocco. All the best to Super Falcons. But we'll take a moment now, and when we return, we start with our question of the day and then the big conversation around the economy. Dr. Tokwe Fashua and Professor Akinju also joins us on this. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. Hope you've got your cup of coffee or tea, because it's time for a very healthy conversation on the economy. Of course, time and again, we turn our focus lens on the administration's economic policies, and for good reason. How is it playing out well for you? And speaking of which, time now for our question of the day. So here's our question of the day for you. Have President Tinubu's economic policies worked for Nigeria? Have President Tinubu's economic policies worked for Nigeria? That's our question of the day for you. So go to all our platforms and start responding already. WhatsApp number will be showing on your screen very soon. You can also comment on X, #CTV Morning Brief. What are your thoughts? You can do a yes or no with an explainer, brief explainer. You also know that we like to bring a summary, a recap of the yeses and the no's as far as the question of the day is concerned. A healthy feedback that the administration needs, of course, to further plan for the economy. Speaking of which, that's where we're headed. The IMF has expressed concern about Nigeria's high inflationary threat and advised on what can be done to address this. Now, let's have this conversation this morning, and we have joining us Dr. Tokpe Fashua. He's a special advisor to President Bola Tinubu on economic affairs. He joins us from our Abuja studio. We also have Professor Adiola Adenikinju. He's the president of the Nigeria Economic Society and Professor, Department of Economics, University of Ibadan. He joins us virtually via Zoom from Abuja. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Good morning. Thanks for the invite.
I'm going to start with you, Dr. Fashua. The IMF is preferring solutions to Nigeria's inflation. Of course, it is acknowledging that indeed the subsidy has gone through and there are increased savings. But let me, just cite briefly from the statement of the IMF. It says, the fund says, for now, the share of revenue that goes to interest spending leaves too little for investment in people and infrastructure. It is therefore critical that the substantial financial savings from the removal of subsidies flow to the government to fund priority spending. And doesn't this leave a huge question mark on subsidy savings that the government keeps touting, that indeed more funds have gone through to the subnationals as a result of subsidy savings? But questions are being asked now, not just by the opposition or economic experts, but even by the Bretton Woods institution about subsidy savings. How do you respond, Dr. Fashua?
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for the invite. Sometimes one wants to think that the IMF, we're talking about the IMF specifically here, they go into an overdrive sometimes, and it's like almost every week or every 2-3 days there's a statement on Nigeria. This sort of heckling, and at the end of the day, it leaves everybody in a state of confusion. I mean, they are the lenders themselves. I mean, that's an institution that we paid $3 billion a few weeks ago, exiting their COVID package, which most other countries have not been able to exit. So we're not asking for their parts in the back, really. We're just saying, you know what, let's have a breather to even be able to implement the policies. Of course, they acknowledge that the reforms are good. They want more reforms. Just last week, or earlier this week, I saw another advisory or a statement from them saying that they are aware that their policies or their statements are unpopular in Nigeria. Yeah, so, I mean, it's like we caught between the deep blue sea and a rock, because on one hand, the statements kind of pitch government or pitch the people against the government. On the other hand, they are there also making all sorts of, grandstanding. So, look, in fact, the first statement you made, the question you posed to the people, is those kind of questions that actually give a false narrative, because you're asking the people 2 years into a government whether the policies have been good for them or not. That's not the question. It's not a nuanced question. Because it's like a house is really, really dilapidated. And then we're talking about having all the full comforts within 2 years. When you have to remove the roof, you have to even do something on the foundation and all of that. This administration under President Tinubu has done some of the deepest reforms that we've seen in a while. I mean, we only just got the tax bill signed into an act. And that tax bill, a pro-poor tax bill that gives a good break to people who are earning very little amounts of money, that actually increases by 100% the threshold for tax-free for small businesses. We haven't even allowed it to even gestate, to even germinate, to even settle down. And then we're having all sorts of statements and all sorts of rather fatalistic statements from different places, including, unfortunately, the IMF. So I don't know, because of course the IMF, they also have an advisory business apart from a lending business. Sometimes it looks like the advisory is clashing with the lending. We don't know which one to believe, So I would think that the statement went into an overdrive.
whereas they acknowledge that we have done the right thing, they want more of the things that will hurt the people. And the government has a right to say, you know what, give us a break, let us see how this one pans out. We don't have to pitch against the people too badly. Let people breathe. Like the president would say, let the poor breathe. So this is the point where we are. Honestly, sometimes this statement makes one feel like they're overrated. We should actually go get our own data ourselves rather than running to some of those Bretton Woods decisions all the time. Get our own data ourselves, invest in our own data ourselves, and have our data sovereignty. Thank you.
I can understand your frustration with the remarks of the IMF or the question, but these questions must be asked. You are accountable to the people. That's on one hand. So let me speak for the question we asked. Section 14 of the Constitution says that sovereignty belongs to the people. That is how government derives its power, through the Constitution. And if you put out a neoliberal policy, whatever explanation you have to give for that neoliberal policy, well, that is, with the greatest sense of respect, the government's kettle of fish. It's how the people experience that lived-in experience. So we constantly need to ask this question. Of course, there will be people that will say, the levers in some aspects in terms of the macroeconomic data and indicators and maybe all of that is moving certainly in some right direction, stability in the currency and all of that. But lived-in experience, like you and I will agree, has not trickled down in terms of compounding effect. So it is a relevant question today. It was a relevant question 1 year ago. It will be a relevant question 3 years ago, 3 years from now. So it's constantly a relevant question, and we'll continue to ask those questions. But again, where I'm going to with all of this, so the fact that the IMF has written their statement, when they applauded the government, it became something that everybody within the system was celebrating, that, look, even the international organization, I remember when the summit was done, it was one of the things I think the governor of Imo State referenced, that even the international organization has said these reforms are necessary. So if they say that some of these reforms are really biting hard and the gaps are widening, something has to be done so that the reforms, the intention of the reforms will not be achieved, or will end up not being achieved. Is that not a relevant proposal?
Well, unfortunately, they have recommended even more painful reforms. You know, that's why it doesn't jive, right? So, because if you are saying that, okay, two things they've recommended even more painful reform. They want, if they could, that we should continue to increase interest rates. Interest rates are a bit stable now. The central bank has a view to begin to reduce interest rate, reducing the MPR pretty soon. Inflation, they complain about inflation. Do you want us to get to a point where it comes to single digits in a quarter? No, it cannot. But inflation has been reducing for the past 3 months and will reduce some more as we go along. What do they want? I mean, whoever wrote that statement is not sounding like an economist, because an economist is not a fantasist. That's a fantastic statement that they just made, expecting things to just turn around. But anyhow, look, there's also politics involved in some of this. Economics and politics cannot be divorced. I've been reading a lot about the Indian economy, how India managed to remove 58 million people from the poverty list in the last couple of years, and now India is projecting itself to be the fourth most equal country in the world. Of course, we know India is a class society. How can it be? Of course, some of the private sector people are also in India also moving against that. So that was how they were able to dump it on us, that we're now the country with the biggest number of poor people in the world. We need our own data, and we need to invest in our own data. That's the way forward. Data sovereignty. The reason why you cannot disparage China is because they have their own data sovereignty. So look, I mean, you cannot be talking about, you know, that we have done quite a bit of reforms, then you now swing around to say, you know what, inflation is still is too high and all of that, spending is this, and then you're now saying we should do even more of those policies that you yourself acknowledged just last week, that your opinions and your statements are unpopular in Nigeria, and they were worried in that statement that, look, you know, going forward, the prospects of IMF in a country like Nigeria, especially Nigeria. They know that these things are unpopular on the street. So look, let me tell you, this is why, first of all, this is why there's a government in every country. I don't, as much as I read quite a lot, I don't see the IMF throwing out statements every other week about United States or even about India, about any other country in the world. There's this fixation, Nigeria, Nigeria, Nigeria. And I know that there are, just let me land on this. I also know that their local team seem to have a more nuanced view about the Nigerian economy than the guys who sit in Washington. I mean, they had to apologize to Senator Jimo Ibrahim in the last spring meeting when they're just rolling out some of these things. Give us a break. Let us be able to know where we're going with a particular policy before coming at us at every angle and generally throwing us off whack. Thank you very much.
Well, Dr. Fasua, quite a lot of things packed into this conversation, and I understand, yes, there may be all the nuances, the politics of things, but we can take the recommendations and really look at ourselves and say, well, it may not be comfortable, but the truth is the truth in terms of the figures. And I'll naturally take this to Professor Adeola Adenikinju and touch on some of the major points that were made in that statement. In fact, the Labour Party presidential candidate in 2023 also spoke to some of the issues around borrowing, and the IMF talks about, the share of revenue that goes into interest spending leaves too little for investment in people and infrastructure. One, it talks about effective budget framework and the kind of budget assumptions that we make. The IMF says, well, they need to be realistic such that you can now use that budget to invest in people rather than make budget assumptions that are big, and when it comes, it under-delivers. So, Prof, I imagine you looked at that statement, you've looked at previous statements, and you've looked at the Nigerian situation. Do we throw away the baby with the bathwater in this case? Is there nothing that is true about it?
Thank you very much, Kayode. I think I want to agree with you that, look, it's very important to actually distill, the message. As an economist, I mean, you look at what they are saying, you look at the data which Dr. Fasha has mentioned, you look at reality on ground, and then you ask yourself, these recommendations or the observations, are these observations true? Is the recommendation flowing from the observation? And are there things we can learn? I mean, we don't have to agree with the IMF, and we don't even need the IMF to tell us any of these issues. But the reality of the Nigerian system today is that there's a lot that of maybe truism in what they have said, because you look at it, for instance. You look at the budget and the assumptions that underlie the current budget. And in fact, the very large extent is going to be difficult to implement that budget. Okay, because all those assumptions have been thrown into, it's extremely difficult to actually implement them. The price of oil has collapsed. Okay, inflation rate was still a little bit above the assumption in the budget. The volume of oil has gone, it's not realistic, or it's not being, global economy is also in a lot of uncertainties and there's macro instability all over the place. So the budget is, the assumptions of the budgets, and people said it at that time, that there's a need to be very careful about this budget. And so with the reality of what is going on now, really, I would assume that, there should be a way of either, revising that budget, to ensure that the budget is in alignment with, with reality. Because if you need to spend, against a budget that the revenue projections may not be realistic, then you're going to have more problems in the sense that, your budget deficit will go up. You then have to borrow more, and that has a lot of implications on the economy. Now, that is very fragile. That, look, keep the budget training, your budget expenditure or management in a way that, you're able to deliver good for the people. So in my view, I think that makes sense. Now, so what we need to do, I mean, again, I had the opportunity of speaking to the Senate, appropriation committee, in the course of that passage of the budget. That look, it's that time that, they also have a system in place where, again, data modeling is done to ensure that you're going to probe the assumptions, okay, and to see that what will be the impact of this budget on inflation, on growth, on unemployment, and so on and so forth. So that you don't take hook, line, and sinker everything that you get from the executive. The executive may mean well, but you as a representative of the people should also have a framework that allow you to have an evidence-based framework to judge whether the budget is well. So that, like, where we are now, really, there has to be conversation going on about what to do about the budget. So when if you then, have to, you don't realize the revenue and you don't cut your expenditure, and then as we are seeing now, debt is increasing, public debt is increasing. And that is part of the underlying cause of inflation in Nigeria. Okay, if you see the liquidity dimension of inflation in Nigeria, you look at, a lot of that is coming from public borrowing, from public, what government is doing. And unfortunately, the whole economy is then punished, you see. So it is very important that has been a weakness, not just under this government. The government has done a lot, I mean, in terms of, some of the policies in place. But the reality is that deficits continue to be a concerning issue, and that has a lot of implications, macroeconomic implications, okay, including inflation, okay. So what the IMF has said, like I said, it doesn't matter who has said it. Even local economists will say it, that it's important to align public, public, budget management in Nigeria. Given all the circumstances that we have, the external, external factors, the global economy is, is a lot of uncertainties, instabilities around that. Domestically, we also have issues, and therefore it's very important that the budget is managed in such a way that it doesn't also exacerbate, some of the problems that we have in the country.
Dr. Fasha, I'd like you to respond to some of the concerns that Professor Adenikinju has raised, the deficit, the debt, and specifically concerns have been raised about this administration borrowing the country into a pit, especially if there have been, subsidy savings, increased funding to the subnationals. Why does the administration still need to resort to borrowing?
Well, I don't know. I'm also very concerned about some of the extreme statements that's been put out in the media, just as you have just said, for borrowing this country into a pit or something of that sort. I mean, the debt of this country reduced by 14 billion in 2024 from 2023. So to a large extent, I don't see where you saw the country being borrowed into a pit. However, because of the recalibration of the exchange rate, the naira amount of the debt went up. It is totally wrong. I mean, I also heard Mr. Peter Obi saying something of that sort. Clearly, except we're not dealing with numbers here. So, yes, the naira value of the debt went up, but in dollar terms, the debt has actually been going down. And I think that we have actually done quite a good work in terms of debt management, given the fact that, look, this week, I understand the MBS, Bureau for Statistics, will release our real GDP. We've been working on a devalued GDP because of the same naira recalibration and the depreciation of the naira. We're a $350 billion, $400 billion economy. We're running on $188 billion now. If we came out with $400 billion, for example, our debt to GDP will be one of the lowest in the world at below 25%. And any country that's actually borrowing at 25% of their GDP is on the road to nowhere. That means you don't have dreams for your people. So my very senior colleague and my professor, Professor Adenikinju, who is my teacher, has actually concentrated on the 2025 budget. He has made some very valid statements. But one of the things I also need to educate us on is this. that Nigeria actually has one of the lowest budgets per capita in the world. Nigeria's total budget is probably the budget of Johannesburg and Cape Town in South Africa alone, which are 2 territories. Okay, the budget of Johannesburg, the last time I checked several years ago, was at least about $5 billion. How much is Nigeria's total budget? About $35 billion or below. You know, so whereas we're enjoying a certain advantage, and I've been saying this on the PPP and on terms of the purchasing power parity, how far a dollar can go in Nigeria versus how it will go in United States or even in most parts of Africa. Nigeria is even a cheaper country to live than Ghana. Not to talk of Kenya, not to talk of South Africa, because of the things we do for ourselves and the fact that Nigeria is an economy in Africa where many indigenous actually are leading the economy. Dangote was listed as the biggest manufacturer in Africa in the recent report that I read. You know, so therefore we are at the forefront of running our own economy. In other parts in South Africa, you know what their problem is: largest inequality in the world, you know, and so on and so forth. So we haven't even started in terms of our budget. Yes, we are running deficit because most growing economies will run deficit. Even developed economies are running deficit. We're just coming from a 2020 COVID, 2020, 2021, 2022, we're gone. Economies were shut in. And so you have to, if you don't borrow, how will you develop? How will you? And of course, one of the ways of reducing inflation, which the IMF is concerned about, is actually developing your infrastructure. When you do the roads, the cost of transportation will go down. Where we live in Abuja here, and you know, Professor Adeleke is in Abuja, you say, if I get to some places in Abuja, I'm lost because infrastructure is exploding. And of course, we ask, where is the budget, the subsidy that was removed? Go to the states. Their allocations have gone up by ×3. And many of them, I must tell you, many of them have woken up and are doing great infrastructure. Just yesterday, Enugu State government launched its own airline. That's something. Infrastructure is developing. Even when they say, why are states building airports? It's part of the infrastructure stock. When you go to Brazil, they have more than 3,000 airports in the whole of Brazil. Local governments have airports in Brazil. Local governments. So, listen, I think the thing to talk about is that, look, most Nigerians must be able to imagine a better Nigeria. So when we say, let's go and shrink the budget, let's reduce expenditure, that will be because we don't want to live where we are. If we want to live where we are, we're going to take bold moves and explode our infrastructure so that our people will need a totally different life. So of course, even the IMF report talks about electricity. I would think that, look, we've done a lot about electricity on the grid and all of that. A lot of investment goes in there. A lot of the infrastructure in that sector are actually rusty. Some of them have been there 60, 70 years since when the colonialists were in this country. Perhaps we should begin to look at alternative sources, and the government should be able to add whatever it does in the alternative to what it has generated with the grid. So we're not just running around 5,800 or whatever. Add whatever you do through rural electrification on alternative to that, and we can present a better picture about the economy. So, in my view, I don't think our budget is too big. I think it's actually too small. I think we should budget in a lot more. Okay, because it's down to what gets to the people.
Dr. Vato, I think your points are noted. It's about ambition over ambition and the reality of being able to fund this budget. There's no point driving being ambitious if there's nothing to scale it in terms of production to be able to fund the budget in the first place. So let's look at the numbers.
Are we then saying we should remain? Are we saying we should then remain in the same spot?
But we're driving
that's not leadership.
Up.
That's not governance. No, we're not going to be defined. What's the name? We're not going to be defined by our past. We will not be defined by our past because we have a future to aspire to.
You know, the point you're making, at the end of the day, when those GDP numbers come, rebase hopefully by Friday or so, we're going to look at the two sides of the coin, because it's a two-edged sword at the end of the day. Because on one hand, when you're looking at the numbers in terms of economics, you have to look at, there's going to be some part that will be positive and then the negative part. And then if there is a gap in the market, if you look at the GDP per capita, whether there is also a market in the gap, which is a term you're quite familiar with. So those are the things that we're talking about in terms of lived-in experiences of people. So the numbers are being touted in terms of fact revenue that has increased unarguably across the subnationals.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, no,
can I answer that, please? Can I answer that very briefly?
We'll come back to you, Dr. Fashua, since you've been talking. Let's take it to Prof.
Okay, I'll answer when you come back. Thank you.
Prof, I think we need your intervention on this particular one. I'm more interested again, besides whether the budget nominally, just looking at it on the surface level, our budget is small. But we can't just say our budget is small and then jack it up because we feel we're a big nation when we can't accommodate as much revenue as possible. Even from Muhammadu Buhari's time, revenue was a problem. I want you to help us close that gap, Prof.
Thank you very much. I think there's a lot of, areas that I agree with Dr. Fashua, in terms of, and I made a point also, revenue per capita, expenditure per capita, we are one of the lowest, okay? But then the issue we have to also address, which is what the point Jeff is also trying to make, is that, look, how do we expand, government, the revenues, the expenditure, public expenditure. We have to also look at, some of the, infrastructure that has been provided, some of these other, areas of digitalization. And by the way, a lot of people are of the opinion, and that the efficiency of government expenditure, the direction of government expenditure, the over-bloated, nature of some of the government expenditure are also there. So it's also it's not just to have expenditure; it's to also look at what is the direction of that expenditure. What are you spending money on? Like Riley said, government borrow. But then the question is, when you are borrowing, you are asking yourself, what am I spending this money on? What will be the impact of this expenditure on area of macroeconomic outcomes? Two, what will this expenditure, will you be able to repay is will be able to repay its back? So there are a number of questions that will follow that. But more importantly, I think that's the direction that the government mentioned, and it's what's also in our development plan, is to how do we unlock, this economy for the private sector. Okay. Now, one of the things I've observed, because if you look at all the, the debt instrument that government is rolling out, the treasury bills, the government debt stock and loan bonds, you have oversubscription. Okay. People, so there's a lot of money, resources that are locked in the private sector. Domestically and externally want to come into this economy. And the question with government should be asked is, how do I unlock this really, that these guys can go into the productive sector of the economy to invest this money without it coming to me? Okay, because we know, and I think that there's some broad agreement in terms of who is more efficient in terms of spending. For every $1 you spend in the private sector, $1 you spend in the public sector, what is the relative efficiency of that? Okay, so what we have now, which unfortunately is also part of what I fear, is that there's some less investment, direct investment by the private sector, including the banks. The banks now, if you look at their books, they are doing less than lending to the public. They rather will buy these government instruments where they make money. Okay. And then so there's a crowding out that is going on from that process. Apart from the fact that excess debts also have its own, also have some of the, some issues around, we are not yet there. But again, we have to be very careful the direction that we are going. That this will not come back to haunt us. You don't know government that will come in after Tinubu, how that efficient that government will be, and therefore you're going to have what was the issue in the past, where repayment became an issue, and then we have to go to the parties, all those issues that then come. So it's very important that now that yes, we must find a way of delivering on a whole lot of, I don't know what to call it, of democracy. There are a whole lot of things that Nigerians need.
Right.
But the question is, should government be doing this? Should we open up the space? Do we create incentives for the private sectors to come in and do it more efficiently so that government can concentrate on what it can do best?
Right.
security and some of these other things. And there's some big infrastructure as it were.
Clearly, we need all of the investment we can get. Maybe we'll get into the conversation around whether or not that would exacerbate inflation or not, with all of the development economic theories and all of that. But Dr. Fasua, let's let you have the final one on this. We have just about a minute to anchor. So you say 2 years rather is too early to rate this government. We all agree that the reforms, very high stake reforms, they have deepened poverty, inflation, they have raised inflation. We agree on all those issues. I mean, we can see the naira to the dollar. That, of course, has its ripple effect on our market and the purchasing power of Nigerians. We all agree on that. So when is the right time? Because you've said 2 years is not enough. So when should we begin to say, well, now is a time we should reap this? If you say 2 years is not enough, you have to give us something, Dr. Fashua. Let's wind down on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kay. Thank you very much, Kay. And what I'll say is perhaps that you give us a year and let's see what happens in this next year. As we close on the 3rd year, let's do another analysis. Remember, you know, I mean, I'm a member of Taiwo Idele's tax committee, and we met for over a year doing serious work. Especially Taiwo himself, profound work. This is the kind of, I mean, the Buhari government was here and Jonathan government, all of them, they would usually complain about revenue issues. For the first time, the government has now done something tangible about reordering the revenue so that the revenue can spike, and this is where we are. So if you look at the body of that, in fact, the total reorganization of the tax, whatever, you know, the only thing which is part of why IMF is not happy is that the government did not go ahead with VAT increase to 10%. We say, okay, you know what, let's keep it at 7.5. Let's observe, because the sentiment of the people is not amenable to such a thing. Remember also that the states were able to pay down 32% of their global debts in 2024. I don't know how they did it, but 32% of the state's debts disappeared in 2024. Only 3 states borrowed, Enugu State, I think Rivers State, and one more state, Niger State, borrowed in 2024. But now some of them are beginning to borrow, trying to take on new projects, and that's it. Lastly, I would say, there's a new economy out there, okay? You know, there's a new economy out there which we must actually understand that some things are totally different and really changing now. Spotify paid Nigerians 85 billion naira in 2024. Where is the money? It's gone down. You know, Professor Adeniki, mentioned that there seems to be money in the private sector. All bonds get...
Oh, there. And that's the high point of Dr. Fashua's explainer. I think he's back. Go ahead, Dr. Fashua. Land on the point we're making.
Yes. Okay, yes. We must understand the economy. In the first place, Spotify paid...
All right, Dr. Fashua, thank you very much. Sadly, we cannot conclude on your explainer there, but you know, the points that you have made about a growing economy is valid. But as we say, there remains a disconnect between the advances made in the economic performance of the administration and the experience of the people. And that's why it's important to keep having this conversation about the performance of the Tinubu administration on the economy. And it's also valid to ask the question to a household who takes over leadership of a household. After 2 years, we still do not have the promised provision. So our question of the day remains valid. We've been talking with Dr. Tokwe Fashua. He's a special advisor to President Bola Tinubu on economic affairs, who joined us from our Abuja studio. We've also had Professor Adiola Adenikinju, President of the Nigeria Economic Society and Professor, Department of Economics, University of Ibadan, who also joined us virtually from Abuja. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming through on this one.
Thank you very much.
And from here, we'll transit to a very important conversation on politics of the Labour Party, especially as it has to do with the position taken by the presidential candidate to identify with the ADC, the newly adopted party by the coalition forces ahead of the 2027 elections. So stay with us for this one. We'll be right back.
We're joined by Mr. Abayami Arabambi, National Publicity Secretary of the Labour Party. Thank you for joining us. Joins us from Lagos, actually. Mr. Arabambi, just get right into it. I recall that some days ago, the Labour Party gave Mr. Peter Obi an ultimatum. So speak to us. Is it your group? Is your group part of that ultimatum? Secondly, it's a 48-hour ultimatum, and by my own calculation, it's 2+ days over that ultimatum. The ultimatum was for him to leave the Labour Party and join the ADC. He says he still remains a member of the Labour Party and wishes to contest for president. So what is next for the Labour Party, Mr. Arabambi?
Well, let me be very clear about this group you just made mention. We do not have groups in Labour Party. We only have one leadership under Barrister Julius Aburi as National Chairman and Alhaji Farouk Umar Ibrahim as the National Secretary. Probably maybe the people you are trying to refer to, are those, group of Nenedi Usman, who Mr. Peter Obi has graciously, appointed as the chairman of the Ayam Festival Committee, because we do not have in our party up to today, in our constitution, even that is even with IMF, we do not have anything like a caretaker. And also, Section 222 of the Constitution is very clear that, political parties shall not be headed by any caretaker. They must be duly elected. So our Constitution is in line with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So we do not have group. Secondly, let me make it very clear. We are convening a NEC meeting where he will be expelled. He was on suspension before he now went ahead to do the anti-party activities. You don't go and join a political party, and at the same time, you still put your leg in another political party. He knows it is unconstitutional for him to belong to two political parties at a time. They have been able to deceive him to their side, and there he shall remain. So a NEC meeting is going to be called shortly, where Obi will be recommended for expulsion, and that will now be confirmed finally at our convention in line with our constitution and in line with most political party constitution. Because when you want to expel an individual who is a member of your party, but that is not doing things in tandem with your constitution, you go to NEC and you expel him and now recommend the final expulsion to the convention. So Obi will be expelled from our party. He's no more a member of our party. It is not within his right to tell us that I'm still a member of Labour Party, and at the same time, he will not be obnobbing, with what we call, the Yahoo coalition. We are not going to accept that.
All right, Mr. Arabambi. So 2 questions in one. I'm happy you landed on that one. He's working with the coalition, but he hasn't left the Labour Party. At least he hasn't resigned officially from the Labour Party. So those cards are still up. And whatever it is the Labour Party have to do with that is entirely yours. But the bigger concern now is that to the effect that it's quite interesting and intriguing and even concerning that the person who literally, quote and unquote, gave the Labour Party the prestige it has today is being at the forefront of this battle. I know the Labour Party has had, I think, governor in Edo and also in Ondo. At least that's the highest we've seen. But in 2023, we saw an in-route to the national level that has never been seen before with that formidable structure. And now every elected official literally seems to be pandering towards the side of the caretaker committee. You look at the APC. APC celebrates defection into their party every other day at the National Assembly, and 2 governors from the PDP have joined them. Isn't it funny that the only one you guys have, and the presidential candidate that has a potential for you, and every other official is the ones you're fighting? How do you want to, what kind of politics are you playing?
You see, in Nigeria, we have a very weak truth and a strong lies. And most Nigerians, they are just spectators looking at who is going to win. They don't care if it is a lie that takes victory over the truth. They don't mind if it is victory that take, the truth that take over the victory. They are just interested in doing win. And that will take me to Martin Luther King Jr. quote, when he said, is that our life begins to end the day we become silent on things that matters. I want to correct very wrong notion and impression about Labour Party. Obi did not make Labour Party. Labour Party made Peter Obi. You see, he was just a child of circumstances because of the NSAS. The NSAS, protests. Nigerians were tired with the maladministration, the scandalous administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari. Nigerians were tired, with the 16-year misrule of PDP. So the only viable option was between Labour Party and NNPP. But because Kwankwaso has also been part of the people who, made us sick and put us into the intensive care, and they have also, all of them now come together to be giving us some form of prescription for us to be healthy, was why most Nigerians, the youth, now decided to follow Labour Party. Because we have had a governor in this country before when Obi was, but just where he was doing the business. So the question of the man that gave us, Labour Party name, and all those political noise is Peter Obi. If it is so, when we gave him 48 hours ultimatum, the day he defected to the ADC, why did he now, turn back to say, oh, I'm still a member of Labour Party? If indeed Peter Obi was the one that made Labour Party what we are today, then they can go and try it in any other political party. I am telling you, if 7 presidential candidates round, Obi will come distance 6 or 7. It was because of our own integrity as a political party. That was what gave Obi what he is today. So for us, we are not banking on that. He's the one who should bank, on our own goodwill, and not all banking on his own goodwill. He started the crisis in Labour Party. I was on your station, and I must give you people, a very good commendation. I was on your station when I said he was trying to southernize our party. But you have seen it today, and that was why if Obi will fight Apapa and my uncle said, if Obi will fight Julius Abure and Laji Farouk Lawan, then it means Obi is not fit to lead any political party. It's not fit. Because who are the people you are going to call your friends? Who are the people you are going to call your allies? A man who will come to a political party and we want everybody to do his will and capable. It is not going to be so. Even President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, give respect to leaders. When he was when he was making an appointment, you see him making move to go and meet political leaders. Oh, I want to use this person, I want to use this person. That was a man who knows it all. Not Mr. Peter Obi, who would just come and now, all the injured players, he came with from PDP. There were the people you want to lord over us, and that was the genesis of the whole crisis. You come and said, oh, you want the executive at all level to be dissolved. For what reason? For who? For Aisha Yusufu? For flamboyant pastor Itu Agadado? Who are the people that you are displacing not for? Senator Nana Usman is a member of PDP. And you just want to displace everybody for reason best known to him. Our answer to that is capital no. He won't just be bringing a lot of people here and say, no, all of you from national to world, I don't want you. He doesn't have that capacity.
Mr. Arabam,
it will be expelled.
Mrs. Usman has published her membership details of the Labour Party. What evidence do you have that she's still a member of the PDP?
You see, she manufactured that card on by herself. When they went to the Ayam Festival in Abia State, who gave her that card? It was in Abia they said they have dissolved, leadership of Labour Party. Where is the constitutional backing? The law is very clear. Section 82(1) of the Electoral Act. Because some of them, they are not advanced with the Electoral Act and the Constitution of Nigeria. The chairman and secretary shall give INEC 21 days notice for NEC, convention, and meetings. Section 82(5) now says, failure to give INEC such notices shall render the outcome of such meeting, NEC, convention, invalid. Shall, if you and I know, shall by Pretoria of rulings in Supreme Court mean it is compulsory you do not have an option. But who are the people that did it? Obi and His Excellency, Governor Lesoti. They were the convener. They are not the chairman and secretary. So ab initio, they have succeeded in building nothing on nothing, which have now crashed, like a pack of cards. So wherever he got that card from, that one remained, a mystery to her. But as far as we are concerned, the National Secretary is from Kaduna State. So who are the people that gave her card? Which ward? It is just a chairman of PDP who went and manufactured, a membership card for her, and they now give it to her. And that was why you see them tilting toward Atiku, of the People Democratic Party, and Rotimi Amechi, of the APC. All of them are trying to come together, thinking that Nigeria can be deceived, to think they have a better future for Nigeria.
All right, that's an automatic right of reply for Mrs. Usman, to counter the claim that you have made about her membership card. But here's what the statement that the Usman faction has put out concerning your position about Mr. Obi's membership status. They're saying the individuals claiming to have issued an ultimatum to Mr. Peter Obi are political jesters with no legitimate standing in the Labour Party. They are neither recognized by the party nor by the law, having been sacked by the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Now, if Mr. Peter Obi decides to identify fully with the ADC, because he said that he's still in the Labour Party, but the ADC is still in the works and is still taking shape, is working with them, and he takes this particular group along with him to join the ADC, some would say that that would form the end of the Labour Party, so to speak. How do you respond?
You see, it is somehow very funny that people who come on air, and now be defending the indefensible. Supreme Court said, issue of leadership is not justiciable. They don't seem to understand that, rather, the Nenadi PDP group and even their lawyers, they have been economical with the truth. And I think at this juncture, most of those their lawyers need to be sanctioned by the NBA. When you go before my Lord, before the Supreme Court, and they said, we decline jurisdiction. They don't even understand what jurisdiction means. That I do not have the right to hear this matter because it is not justiciable. Meaning, what happened to Abure was what happened to Anyanwu. But today in PDP, Anyanwu lost to Ode in Federal Court, Court of Appeal, Supreme Court. But today, where is he? Is it the National Secretary of PDP? It is internally affairs of the party. That's what the Supreme Court says. And who are the party? The party in Nigeria is under the leadership of Baisajule Abure, whom we have reconfirmed as our national chairman. It is purely under the party, and that was why we are the one that will still conduct primaries for all the by-elections. All the by-elections, the INEC, National Assembly, the Rep and Senate, and most of the Assembly that resigned or that died, their primary coming up on the 17th of July. We have written to INEC, and INEC will come to monitor it. It is not a question of them coming to distort fact or constitution. Even if you want to distort fact, you cannot distort the constitution. Right, so they need to go back and learn what constitution electoral say in section 82, 1 and 5, and what the constitution says. Okay. So for us, Labour Party is not going to die because Labour Party was alive when Obi came. We gave him, the victory that he has. It wasn't him. And like I said, if he thinks is the best for us, and Labour Party will be nothing, when we expel him, let him go and try his luck in APC, which I know. APC ticket is between Atiku and this man from Rivers, Amechi. It's not going to be, a sleeping boy in that gangster.
Very strong words there, Mr. Arabambi. Just quickly, when is that NEC meeting? Quickly, when do you want to hold it?
No, we have given INEC 21-day notice.
Okay, so within 21 days, you hold the NEC meeting.
Yes, it's this month we are going to hold the next meeting where it will be expelled and will recover. And we'll go to we'll go to convention finally to ratify its expulsion.
All right, Mr. Abayomi Arabambi, thank you for your time. Clearly, this is not the end of a conversation, but we have to thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on the program.
Yeah, you are welcome.
Well, we'll take a quick break now, and when we return, the BRICS relationship with Nigeria. What's in it for us? The pros, the cons, and now that President Trump has been speaking, well, we'll get to find out really what is in it for Nigeria in a moment, so please stay with us. Let's speak to some of the trending videos and issues online. And the very first one is Vice President Kashim Shettima, gentlemanly, holding the door for delegates. Of course, this got a lot of people talking, saying our Vice President Kashim Shettima holding the door for the foreign delegates. Well, looks like they were shocked. But it's just what the hosts naturally will do, really. And I think this is great to see. I know a lot of people have spoken about the vice president being a very humble person even before he became vice president. And you can see the look on their faces. Normally, this is meant for well, security, either the DSS, what have you. But the vice president chose to do that. So interesting. See this comment from Black Oga Loud, I think, saying, "I see nothing wrong. They visited him in his country. Nothing bad in him being hospitable."
Well, Cheetah is the next user on this one, who says, "What I see is Nigerian culture. We believe in giving the best hospitality, and in short, this vice president is humble." Yeah, that's from Cheetah.
Ah, there you go. So a lot of people commend this, and I think we should see more of this. So it's okay if you can carry your bag, hold your umbrella, just really look like a simple person. Yeah, we're not telling you to maybe walk on the road, even though we look forward to that. I mean, see world leaders taking a walk or jogging or riding their bicycles. It really changes the face of leadership. So I really hope that this is a trend that will continue. And that's why a lot of people love Peter Obi, because they see his simplicity. So I hope that a lot of people can replicate this. The fact that you're a leader doesn't mean that you're the Lord. No, you're a servant of the people. But let's go over to the BRICS conversation now, Jeffrey.
Yeah, fantastic. So we're having joining us from Rio in Brazil, the special advisor to the President on Foreign Affairs and Protocol, Mr. Ademola Oshodi, joins us now. Mr. Oshodi, thank you so much. I know we had to pull you out of sleep, but the service to the nation, and thank you, first and foremost. Maybe you bring us an overview of what has played out in the last couple of days. We've seen the president's statement in terms of reevaluating governance reforms, our structure in that sense globally, because of those of us in the global south. We constantly feel when we don't have a seat on the table, perhaps that's a premise of the president's posturing. So help us with an overview of how this is important to us as Nigeria and perhaps as a continent.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's actually senior special assistant. I'm not an advisor yet. I hope I get that promotion soon.
We say amen.
Amen. It's the BRICS is a big thing for Nigeria. It's I think it's probably bigger than after the United Nations. It's just next to after the United Nations. It is the mother of all South emerging economies, the big countries of the South, the global South, away from the G7 or the big 7 Western countries of America, Europe, Canada, and the rest of them. Nigeria has taken its place as a partner country with BRICS. It gives us the leverage to be on that table, talking to and meeting with major global players like China, India, Russia, South Africa, and of course Indonesia. So it gives us leverage to ensure that we are on a mutually respectable place, whereby our interest as an emerging economy aligns with those of the member countries of BRICS. Nigeria can push hard, not even pushing above its weight, pushing equal to its weight as a giant in Africa, and ensuring that our interests regarding trade, mutual respect, climate, and of course, international finance and cooperation can be also looked into. It's big for Nigeria, and it's something that we seek to be a full member with, I hope, in the next few moments.
And Dr. Oshodi, BRICS seems to take aim at President Trump's sweeping tariff policies in its statement, warning against unjustified unilateral protectionist measures, including the indiscriminate increase of reciprocal tariffs. And for that, Nigeria may have been slammed additional 10% tariff because of its alignment with the BRICS. I wonder how Mr. President is receiving this right now during his participation. Of course, that news may have come through. And more importantly, how does Nigeria navigate this delicate balance of its relations between BRICS and, of course, the global north?
Well, Nigeria is not a full member of BRICS, so that 10% really doesn't affect us. We are just, we're just partner countries. We're not a full member. We're just there to ensure that we test the waters and see if it aligns with our interest. And we can't vote. We're not part of the communique. So that 10%. Policy, which is really more of an utterance right now. It's more of a communication. It's not American. It's not yet an American policy. So I think we should have a wait and see. But it doesn't really pertain to Nigeria. We're not a full BRICS member. But how the second part of your question is how we deal with the North. Especially the global north, the Western industrialized country. Nigeria has played a good role with, the global north. We have a very strong relationship with the United States of America, the European Union especially, and of course, the United Kingdom. Nigeria our biggest trading partners are with those countries, and then probably we'll go down to India before we start going down to other parts of the world. So they need us. It's a very symbiotic relationship. They need our involvement in leadership in Africa, especially regarding security and also regarding our mitigation against, fighting, climate change, which, invariably affects African countries and the global South, the BRICS nation, more than the industrial North. So we champion our interests with them, ensuring that trade routes are open, liberalization is available, and also that they curb their greenhouse emission, which affects us. It affects our herder, farmer issues, especially with the clashes and the tension around the country. People are coming, herders are coming down south to get pastoral land and water. This is the effect of climate change, created by the West. Nigeria has that relationship with them in, the Commonwealth, the United Nations, and, we're an aspiring member of big organizations like the G20. So this platform is a win for Nigeria. Nigeria is on that table. We ensure that our interest aligns with the BRICS country, and it's not an anti-West position. It's Nigeria aspiring to ensure our interests regarding economy, security, and of course, trade liberalization is respected.
Well, I want to just read the words of President Trump. I know that President Lula da Silva has said that the world does not need or want an emperor who lashes out over the internet. I know there's a lot of, I wouldn't say skepticism, but not a lot of people take those words seriously. But let me just read those words for President Trump. Says, any country aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS will be charged an additional 10%. So are you saying Nigeria is not aligning with BRICS?
Nigeria is not a full member of BRICS.
No, I understand that. The words were any country aligning itself with the policies of BRICS. So does that mean that Nigeria is not aligning with BRICS, or is Nigeria aligning with BRICS?
Nigeria has an ideological partnership with BRICS. We are not a full member. So in many ways, we could have ideological similarities, we could have mutual interest, we are not signed up to it. So it will not affect us. It can't affect us. The other countries that are partner countries with BRICS that this policy does not pertain to. And it's a legal thing. So why should Nigeria be in any situation be in a bind regarding this when we're not a full member? So I'm quite certain the fact that this is not a Nigerian affected policy. And again, we should be quite cautious. It's just a comment from the United States president. It's not yet an American policy. So we should just wait and wait and see approach and see how things pan out. But right now, we're not a full member, and this should not affect us, regardless of our ideological similarities.
I know that we're strategic allies with the United States, and so why we're probing further with that question could be to the effect that how we're going to walk the fine lines of that strategic alignment with possible diplomatic isolation when it comes to geopolitics tension as it plays out in geopolitics. But more important to Nigerians, and this is what I'm directing to you, whether in the short term, immediate term, or in the midterm, with the going out for this BRICS summit in Brazil, the way we say it in Nigeria, Daddy Oyoyo, what do you think we're coming back with?
Oh, this is the most exciting part, Jeffrey. We're coming back with tremendous profile for the country of Nigeria. We're sitting among the big players of the world, the big countries of the South, emerging economies. We're sitting with China. We're sitting with Brazil, India, and even Russia. Nigeria is now seen in a higher, bigger light than just an African player. We are seen as a toe-to-toe with those big players. And the thing about BRICS is that they emphasize a lot on mutual respect, equality, and they feel the fact that I believe what they miss out on the Western aligned organizations like the United Nations, the G7, the G20, and the rest of them, they don't get that equality. But they get it with BRICS. Everybody, it's part of the BRICS charter. Everybody is equal. Now, again, we're not a full member, but we are given opportunities to sit among full member countries and talk about what concerns us. Nigeria is a selected few countries of 9 other countries that are just, partner countries. They didn't invite everybody. They did not, ensure that all the Tom, Dick, and Harry showed up. They wanted major players, big decision makers that could influence the region, influence the continent, influence the diaspora, and provide trade, and in many cases, a hedge against the Western institutions that that may not see their interests or see the interest lie. So Nigeria comes out looking very good on that table, and and seen as a major player, and it's a huge success for the president, and what we aspire for in our foreign affairs.
All right, your clarification about Nigeria's alignment with BRICS is important, because at the start of admittance, the Minister of Foreign Affairs had said that Nigeria was her relationship with BRICS was a strategic autonomy one. It was going to maintain its autonomy. But I'm asking now, will Nigeria pursue the right of a voting member in BRICS?
We're not very sure. We're not very clear yet to what our intentions are. That's the policy of the Nigerian government. But the fact that we've been invited to be a partner country says a lot. The fact that Nigeria played a big role with our relationship with the president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, the fact that Nigeria and South Africa and Ethiopia, are basically close associates and members of BRICS, especially with South Africa being one of the closer founding members. It's a big thing. So it's Nigeria ensuring that we provide that leverage between Africa, that linkage between Africa and the global south. Nigeria has growing trade relationships with India. Everybody trades massively with China, and we have a budding relationship with Brazil. Our livestock industry a lot of it is grown because of the Brazilian connection. Farming is also a lot of it is grown because of the Brazilian connection, especially the relationship between the two leaders, President Tinubu and President Lula da Silva. They have this unique chemistry that helps the relationship of both countries. So we also have major players, which everybody basically overlooks. Indonesia is a rising force, a big population, and a big, big industrialized emerging economy. Nigeria sits on that table, provides that leverage and that capacity to punch well within our capacity. Yeah.
All right, Dr. Oshodi, I wish we had more time to explore this conversation. Apparently, there's a lot to explore, but for want of time. But we must thank you so much, Dr. Ademola Oshodi is the SSA to the President on Foreign Affairs and Protocol. And again, I hope you can catch some sleep before the day's activity, because we had to pull you out literally. Thank you, sir, and I wish you the very best outing right there in Brazil.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I'm still in my pajamas, but I'll gladly let you wake me up anytime.
It's service to the nation. We appreciate it. Thank you for your service.
And that is some pajamas, I must say. Don't you love the pajamas of Dr. Oshodi?
So let's go to our responses to our question of the day, and we're starting with Olaleko Fawibe, right? Yes, who says, on paper, okay, let's remind you of the question of the day. Have President Tinubu's economic policies worked for Nigeria? So Fawibe says, on paper, yes, but the impact is not impacting on the lives of the average Nigerians. I like that. Impact is not impacting.
I think we should adopt that word. So it's not giving. Nigerians. Okay, this is from Grace Ofuani. Say, no, the subsidy savings have since been totally eroded by the devaluation of the naira without commensurate increase in exports. Yeah, that's a great point. Because when you look at the FAC allocation in dollar terms and naira terms.
In fact, the impact also on minimum wage, what they're earning now, even though it's been increased, has diminished significantly.
Yeah, let's see if we can take more. George Ndara says yes, actually. This next user says yes. President Bola Tinubu's policies are good for Nigeria. That's George Ndara, who says yes. The next one says President Bola Tinubu's policies are good for Nigeria, from the electricity bill to tax reforms, local government autonomy, and bold fiscal steps. His tough decisions are shaping a better future. Nigerians may not see it now, but he's the best president we've ever had. Are you an APC member?
No, it's okay. Well, it's okay.
He just may be a Nigerian who believes in the president.
That's the point he sees, and it's a valid point.
It's not wrong to be an APC member.
And it's the beauty of democracy, whether he's an APC member or not.
Everybody has a right to air their opinions.
But let's go to Chinedu Eziugu from Enugu, who says, I believe that the President Tinubu's economic architecture lacks the needed experience and willpower to execute any impeccable economic strides. The various economic reforms that have been adopted have in no way impacted positively the lives of the average Nigerian. One can easily see this in our everyday activity. He has really underperformed in his capacity as the president and must therefore do better.
That's the point of view of Chinedu.
Are you a Labour Party member?
APC, PDP member. Okay, this person say yes. However, this question shouldn't have been asked in just 2 years into the. No, we can ask question anytime.
Well, that's Prince Adedoja, by the way.
Yeah, Prince Adedoja Aroyole says this government is building up a dilapidated economy from feeding bottle economy, which we're used to. Now there is a noticeable stability of the country, of the economy, and the exchange rate. So for the records, we can ask question anytime. Yeah. You're accountable to the people.
Absolutely.
It's not how you want it done, it's how the people want it done. Nigerians are, just go out and ask to do a vox pop. You simply know how Nigerians are feeling. The levels up may be good, but down is still much to desire. So we'll ask the question today, yesterday, and even tomorrow.
And that is what helps with policy formulation, really. But let's show you the summary now, what we got. So we got 12 people saying, yes, they will work, and 60 saying, no, they aren't working, won't work. Okay, some pessimism there, come on. So that is a summary of some of the responses we've gotten so far. There's a lot more, but let's just give you a snapshot of them.
I really do like S's response. It's brief, but she's given us a question back. She says, why hasn't Tinubu economic policies worked? That's S's response. But there you have it, your summary.
So it depends on which side of the divide you're on. Some are saying, give it time, it's gestation period, as it's called. With time, you're going to know whether this president was right in his decision or not. Others are saying, no, it's not right. So that's why it's democracy. Only time, they say, will what? Tell. Okay, and that's it on the program. Thank you for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Ozama. Bye-bye.
And Sunrise Daily is up next. Thank you so much for being there. We'll be back again tomorrow. I am Bukola Koka.
Wait till you see Marquez's outfit and the look on Sunrise Daily. And, of course, the conversations, definitely. Join us again. I'm Kayode Okikio.